Then on Sports Central, we go over our next scheduled preview of this offseason, and it's going to be over Michigan, the defending Big Ten champions. This team has very much placed themselves as one of the top powers in college football. As we look forward to 2023, this team has been to 2 straight college football playoffs. They lost in the semifinals both seasons. They lost to Georgia last year, and then they lost to TCU this past season. What was a thrilling game, but obviously a very disappointing loss to end off an outstanding season. But how will this team be in 2023? Will this team once again be a major national contender in the 2023 season? Could this be the Wolverines' year? We'll be talking about that here today. We'll be going over the players this team will be losing, who they'll be returning, and previewing their schedule for the first time this offseason. Let's get started looking at 2022 one more time. This team was 13-1 in 2022. They were 13-0. They won the conference championship, beat Purdue in the Big Ten championship before losing to TCU in the college football playoff semifinal, the Fiesta Bowl. And they were favored against TCU, but TCU came to play and barely got the win. I mean, that was a close game. TCU got up early, and they took advantage of a couple of brutal mistakes by Michigan, a couple of crucial turnovers, and that ended up being a disappointing loss for Michigan. But, I mean, nonetheless, this was still an outstanding season once again for the Wolverines, and this team has really gotten over the hump. I mean, honestly, heading into the season, I didn't think this team was going to beat Ohio State. I mean, for a good chunk of the season, I didn't think this team was going to be able to get past the Buckeyes, considering the game was in Columbus, and also Ohio State was definitely one of the top teams all season. And Michigan still managed to go into Columbus and win the Big Ten championship then after that. So for them to be in the college football playoff this season in itself is extremely impressive, and it really shows how far this team has come the past few years. They have finally gotten over the hump, and they're very much a major national contender and one of the top powers in college football. They have jumped Ohio State, and as of right now, Michigan is the team being talked about as the big national contender when it's usually Ohio State, but Michigan has taken their place as we look forward to 2023. But they started the season hot with 3 dominant wins over Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn, beat Maryland to start off the conference slate by a touchdown. They beat Iowa on the road, beat Indiana as well, beat Penn State. That was a huge win, 41-17. We should have known after that Penn State win, this team was absolutely a major contender. They beat Michigan State comfortably then after that, beat Rutgers, beat Nebraska, took care of Illinois, even though that game was very close. That was a dangerous game there towards the end of the season. Illinois really put up an outstanding fight, but Michigan still got the win in the end by 2. And they beat Ohio State on the road 45-23 to finish out the regular season. Once again, I mentioned the win against Purdue to win the Big Ten title for the second straight year. Made it to the college football playoff for the second straight season. This team was a favorite against TCU, but just couldn't quite get it done. Lost, the final score being 45-51. But looking forward to 2023. Now, here's your roster preview going into next season. J.J. McCarthy is returning. He's starting quarterback for this team, who's very much on the rise. And he had an outstanding season, 2,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, over 5 interceptions. A great touchdown-interception ratio. He is an impressive quarterback, an impressive young quarterback for that matter, 65% completion rate as well. So keep an eye on McCarthy going to next season, having him back. And, I mean, in 2021, we did see him start to get some action, but 2022 was definitely his first main season as the starting quarterback for the Wolverines. And you could say definitely looked better in 2022 versus the time that he did play in 2021. This team also has got Blake Corum coming back, which it was kind of questionable as to whether or not he was going to return, as he's been with Michigan for a while now. He's been around since the 2020 season. He became a major player for this team in 2021, and I mean, he didn't have to return, but he is coming back, it appears, for Michigan, which is going to be huge. This is going to be one of the top backfields in the country, if not the top backfield. I mean, you got Donovan Edwards, who has shown tremendous potential when he's played for this team, and when Blake Corum's been injured at times. So you got Blake Corum, who put up 1,500 yards this season and 19 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, when he's been able to play, has put up nearly 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. They've combined for over 2,800 yards this season of offense and 28 touchdowns. This is an outstanding backfield, and it's going to be an issue for a lot of teams in the 2023 season. The receiving core, you do lose a couple. Ronnie Bell is gone. The top receiver for this team would put up just over 900 yards, 5 touchdowns. But Cornelius Johnson is coming back, the second receiver for this team, who put up 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. You lose your top tight end and your third in receiving, Luke Schoonmaker, who put up just over 400 yards this season. And you do return your third receiver, your fourth in receiving yards on the season, Roman Wilson. So at least you got your second and third wideouts coming back. I'm honestly not too concerned about the receiving core. You got some good depth in there. I think you'll be okay. You lose 2 on the offensive line, 2 defensive linemen, 2 in the secondary. Linebacking core looks great. I mean, this team has got some tremendous depth as well, so you got to consider that. I think this team will be just fine as we look forward to 2023 defensive. And this team on defense was a solid team in 2022. And looking at who they have returning going into 2023, I really like how this team looks heading into next season in the returning production. But the one thing I will say, Jim Harbaugh has been questioned in whether or not he might return to the NFL. And it appears that's not going to happen. The Broncos just hired Sean Payton. The Texans just hired head coach. So it appears as if Jim Harbaugh is going to be staying. He's also said that he is all in with Michigan. So that's great news for the Wolverines. I do think if Jim Harbaugh were to leave, if that were to happen for the NFL, which is I think that's very much a possibility in the future, whether that's now or 5 years from now. I think Jim Harbaugh is a significant part of this program, and he's obviously the head coach, but he has just had an outstanding time with getting this team over the hump the past couple of seasons. He's a key factor here. If he does leave, I do think that lowers the ceiling for Michigan going into next season. But yeah, they got tremendous talent, great depth heading into 2023. Could this finally be the Wolverines' season as we look forward to 2023? This team has come up short in the college football playoff the past couple of seasons. They just now got to get over that hump. They've gotten over the hump of Ohio State and the Big Ten championship. Now they got to get past the college football playoff semifinal hump. And we've seen, with Jim Harbaugh, it may take time, but he's been able to get this team over big mountains that this team has had to face in years past. So I think Michigan is a possibility. The talent looks very much like a possibility for them to do that. I think the Big Ten is wide open for them. And this is still a team that I see being a major contender in 2023. Your transfer portal and recruiting, this team has already had a lot of significant moves in the transfer portal. Josiah Stewart's coming in, Coastal Carolina. He's an edge rusher, and he's going to be a key player from the start. Really, this team has got multiple players coming in that are going to have immediate impacts. Ladarius Henderson, offensive lineman, coming in from Arizona State. A.J. Barner, tight end, coming in from Indiana. You do lose Taylor Upshaw to Colorado. Eric All, tight end, who's had an impact in the past, not so much in 2022, but he's off to Iowa. Julius Welshoff, defensive lineman, is going to Charlotte. Deuce Spurlock is off to Florida, linebacker, and Lewis Hansen, tight end, is off to UConn. Otherwise, Miles Hinton, defensive tackle, is coming in from Stanford. You also got another offensive lineman, Drake Nugent, coming in from Stanford as well. Ernest Hausman, he's going to have a key impact or an immediate impact for this team. Linebacker from Nebraska. Jack Tuttle. You got a couple of quarterbacks moving. You got Jack Tuttle coming in from Indiana. He's just going to be a backup. Cade McNamara is off to Iowa. Alan Bowman is off to Oklahoma State. That's his third school, as he was at Texas Tech before Michigan. George Rooks, defensive lineman, is in the transfer portal, and Andrell Anthony is off to OU. Recruiting-wise, this team is 18th nationally, third in the Big Ten. Not bad at all. I think the second team in the Big Ten is Penn State. The top is Ohio State, but 18th in the country is not bad at all. They got 10 4-stars coming in and 13 3-stars. But that said, let's look at your schedule now going into next season. You got East Carolina to kick things off on September 2nd. Overall, the non-conference schedule is pretty easy once again for Michigan. This team did receive a bunch of backlash, you could say, for their non-conference schedule in 2022. I mean, heading into 2022, this team was facing 3 of the worst teams in the FBS between Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Turns out UConn wasn't bad, but otherwise, I mean, yeah, Michigan just didn't have a strong non-conference schedule at all in 2022, and it's kind of the same story as we look forward to 2023. East Carolina, not bad, but UNLV and Bowling Green, yeah, they're both just easy wins and very much beatable teams. They're just poor football teams. So no notable non-conference games, but the conference schedule, you do play, obviously, your Big Ten East opponents between Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. Those are the most notable ones. Maryland could be decent this year. Keep an eye on them. Big Ten West is wide open once again. I see Wisconsin and Iowa being the two top teams in the Big Ten West. And guess what? You don't play either of them in 2023. So, I mean, things are looking good. It's a pretty easy schedule for Michigan. This team, wouldn't be surprised one bit to see them just run the table, go 12-0 once again. But let's look at September here. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers, all 4 of those games are easy wins in my mind. I think there's really no chance you lose any of them. I mean, Rutgers we thought could be decent in 2022. They were okay, but heading into 2023, they might be even worse. But Nebraska on the road, then on September 30th, I will be putting that game in yellow, meaning I think it's a win as of right now, but that's one of those games that's kind of a toss-up. I do want to favor Michigan for sure there, going on the road and beating Nebraska, but it is a road game and a tough place to play. We've seen Michigan and Nebraska be competitive in the past, especially when the game's in Lincoln. So I do want to favor Michigan, but potentially could be a closer one. So your ceiling's 5-0, floor is 4-1 heading into October. Looking at October here, I think Minnesota is an easier win. I don't expect Minnesota to be too good. Indiana, I think, is an easy win as well. Not expecting too much out of the Hoosiers, but Michigan State on the road, rivalry game. I do want to put that game in yellow as well. I think Michigan State should be better. They were very much a disappointing team in 2022, but I do think I'll favor Michigan there, even though definitely could be a closer one. So the ceiling is still 8-0, still undefeated heading into November. Your floor is 6-2. So I do think at the worst, this team is 6-2 heading into November, even though I think that's pretty unlikely that this team even has a loss. I mean, honestly, this team is more than likely going to be undefeated heading into November. November is really the toughest month of the season for sure, in particular, those last 3 games. I think Purdue does fall off this season. I think Purdue is going to fall off, maybe not even make a bowl game, quite honestly. So I think that's an easy win. But then Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State, this 3-game stretch could cause some issues. I think Penn State on the road is a very dangerous game there on November 11th. I think, honestly, this team might have a larger chance of losing to Penn State than Ohio State. I think Ohio State, having that game at home this year, you've beaten them the past couple of seasons. In Ohio State, I just have a couple of questions about them heading into next season, a little bit of uncertainty for Ohio State. So I think Penn State, that is a very dangerous game there. That's basically a 50-50 game right now. Maryland, I do want to favor Michigan, but I'll still put it in yellow just because I could see Maryland being an 8 or 9 win team this upcoming season. And Ohio State, I've got that as a favor for Michigan as well right now. Maybe a little more so than Penn State, even though I think Ohio State-Michigan is still a bit of a toss-up this season. Especially the Penn State-Michigan game, though, is definitely a toss-up. I think that's a very dangerous game for the Wolverines. But the ceiling heading to next season at 12-0. I do have the floor being 8-4, which may be lower than you may expect. But I do think this team, coming off of another brutal playoff loss, we could see this team disappoint a bit in 2023. That's a possibility. If you look at the energy of teams, that's just as important as the talent of the team. Talent-wise, this team easily could go 12-0. But I will put the floor at 8-4 just in case, even though I think this team is, I would be shocked if they had less than 10 wins in the 2023 season. I see this team 11 to 12 wins personally. I'll be giving you guys my official prediction once we get to the later spring and into summer. But as of right now, I think, yeah, definitely towards the ceiling here of 12 wins is more likely. But just in case Jim Harbaugh does leave, and if this team does disappoint a bit, I will put the floor at 8-4. But once again, as I said, I'm not saying this team is going to go 8-4. I'm saying I think this team is going to be in between 11 or 12 wins, but the 8-4 floor is a possibility, even though extremely slim. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Michigan, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.